Hi, this is Gareth Hines. I am the author of a number of graphic novels, most recently an Edgar Allan Poe collection called Poe Stories and Poems. And I'm doing this video kind of as a last-minute entry for Inktober. I've been traveling and cranking really hard on my next graphic novel, which is the Iliad, so I haven't really had time to do Inktober, but I wanted to do a post for Halloween. I thought it could be a Halloween Inktober post, so I'm going to draw the Raven, inspired by, of course, Poe's famous poem, The Raven. What you can see here is me just sketching in the Raven very loosely, and this is based on some reference from a couple of photos, so I'm looking at those on my computer. I've got my sketchpad set up on top of my Wacom tablet. That's what you can see in the background. And here I'm just roughing out the sketch. Okay, now I'm going to ink this, and I'm actually starting out with the ink dropper. I kind of like using the ink dropper sometimes because it generates some more sort of random scratchy marks that you can see me making right now, along with just putting down a bunch of ink I can use so I don't have to keep dipping my brush into the bottle. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to the brush. And I have a bunch of different brushes that I use, but what I'm going to use for this video is actually an old, really beat up brush that I've had for years, and it really takes a while to beat up a brush enough for it to make these kind of ragged marks that this brush makes, and that's what I like about it. And there's lots of other brushes that I've tried to get to this point, and they haven't really turned out as well. This one's my favorite, although I have a few others that have other qualities I like. So here I'm just roughing in the dark bits. Here I'm going to get the tail feathers, using that sketch underneath as a guide, but allowing myself to disregard it if I feel like the brush wants to go somewhere a little bit different. And again, I am looking at some photo reference, so I'm not just entirely making this up, but I'm also, what's on the paper is what's important, not accuracy to the photo. Okay, so I'm roughing in a bunch of the feathers, belly, some of the little pin feathers off the back of the legs. The legs are tricky. They need to look really kind of sinewy and a bit scaly because of the skin on the on the claws. It has this kind of scaly look. And so, you can see me working a little bit more carefully, using the very tip of that brush and using it very lightly. And I will make a bunch of nice loose strokes, and I'll kind of stop for a minute and reevaluate what's going on the paper and what I want to do next. I do try to work pretty fast and pretty spontaneously in my drawings, but then you do have to take a second to just see what's working and what's not. And I'm going to be a little bit more careful here on the head and the eyes, because that's a very small difference in the marks can make a very big difference in the expression or the proportions of the head. So I just want to be a little more careful with that. And also I'm starting to, actually what I'm going to do here is wipe a bunch of the ink off of my brush, because I want to start getting some more dry brush effects here and making some finer marks. So I want to get rid of any excess ink that's pooled in the brush and start to go in with a very light touch and create these feathery marks. You can see those places where the bristles are separated a little bit, and that makes these just lovely little marks that are what I'm looking for with this brush. And I'm going to use that to kind of concentrate a highlight at the top of the head. And then go back and paint in some detail on the feathers. You can see the ink is lighter here. This is actually not the ink I normally use. I'm using Liquitex Carbon Black ink, and it's working pretty well, except that it does seem to be a little bit diluted here. I don't know if maybe I didn't mix it up well enough, or maybe this ink just isn't quite as dense of a pigment. as I want. Often I use Sumi ink. Sometimes I use Noodler's ink. I have a whole bunch of different ones. And as for what kind of brush this was back when it was new, I don't even know, because all of the coating on the handle has worn off, including all the lettering. So I really don't even know. I think it might have been a Princeton, but yeah, I don't know. And I think it's real sable, but it might have been a synthetic sable. Lastly, I'm going to add something for him to be standing on. At this point, I've got the brush very, very dry. And I should say that this brush and ink style is not actually how I illustrated the Raven for my new graphic novel, but it is very similar to how I did the illustrations in my previously illustrated book, Samurai Rising, a great nonfiction book by Pam Turner. But for the new graphic novel, which again is Poe, Stories and Poems from Candlewick Press, the Raven is actually drawn in charcoal, black and white charcoal. So I'm going to finish by just signing this and adding a little Halloween message. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you will check out Poe, Stories and Poems, as well as my other work at GarethHines.com. Follow me on social media, and have a happy Halloween. Thanks, everyone. Nevermore!